Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and transformational life coach and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Welcome back to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, Tara Accardo, and today's topic has actually been on my heart for a little while now, but I wanted to have at least, let's say, 6 months of parenthood under my belt before recording this episode. And my daughter is now 7.5, almost 8 months as of the time of this recording. And really, I just wanted to have sort of a vulnerable conversation with you all today about navigating parenthood, and in my case, motherhood, without one or both of your parents. And in my case, it's both, right? And I'll be very honest with you guys. This episode originally was going to be more specifically navigating motherhood without my own mother. But literally this morning, I was like, no, you know what? Like, I sadly am an individual without both parents. And I want to acknowledge that. And I want to talk about navigating parenthood without your own parents. And so I want this episode to be something that you take however it is relevant to you. If you are without one parent, but you still have another, or whatever your parent situation is, however many you have left, apply this to however it works for you. But the reason I wanted to focus initially on like motherhood without my own mother is just because, when you lose a mother figure, especially because we come from our mothers, I think there is just such a tether that feels like it's broken, if that makes sense. And as a daughter, especially, mother-son relationships, don't even get me started. I see some very, very close mother-son relationships. They are sacred and so, so special in their own way. So especially if there are men listening here, like, please, this applies to you too, right? But that's actually why I wanted to kind of open the conversation a little bit, because I think the being a daughter without her mother conversation is a specific one, and it's very important to have. So in this episode, there are definitely aspects of that specifically I'm going to be touching on, but I wanted to just like broaden this and really lean into my story and my experience and have, navigating all of this without both. So I, as usual, I don't have a lot scripted here. This is very much like I'm in a flow state right now. So apologies in advance for hesitations, me needing to kind of like capture my thoughts and verbalize them. But I love doing these episodes. I love being very raw and real with you guys and, just sharing these thoughts as they come up. So, with parenthood, I knew what I was signing up for, of course. I did and I didn't, right? With parenthood, it's like you can it's one of those things, just like losing a loved one, that you don't know until you know. I knew it was going to be tough without my mom and dad. I knew going through pregnancy was going to be tough without my mom and dad. I knew starting to raise my daughter. And again, we're only 7.5, almost 8 months in as of the time of this recording. And God willing, I have a lot more parenting to go. And I knew it was going to be difficult, of course. Like, I don't have the two people that I need most with me. So again, no matter where you are, whether you're without your mom, without your dad, without maybe a parental figure, whether it was a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or whoever it was that helped raise you, right? There's no specific way that this has to look. It doesn't even have to be a biological parent. It's just navigating that new parenthood or even existing parenthood, no matter how long you've been on this journey for. It doesn't matter. It's all hard, right? No matter how old you are, no matter how old your kids are, all of it. So I'll interrupt myself really quick here and just say, in this episode, I'm going to just share some thoughts and feelings. Really, that's the purpose of this. I like to do these episodes every so often and just kind of share what's on my heart and hope it helps all of you. And I'll just touch a little bit of how I've coped and how I'm trying to navigate it, because as you guys know here, I try and never leave you empty-handed as far as, next steps. Like, okay, like you might be like, okay, Tara, thanks for like talking about this, but like, what do I do now? Like, what's next? How do I navigate life with grief? And how do I move through all of this? So hopefully I can help a little bit along those lines today. But I think the place I want to start, the fascinating part about parenthood, and also approaching this without major people in your life that you need, that you're missing. It's like you're standing at the edge of two really monumental life events. On one side, the overwhelming grief of losing your mother or father or whatever parental figure it is, your guide, your rock. And again, my parents now have been dead for 4.5, almost 5 years, I think. And, this is why grief lasts a lifetime, right? Because new life events come into play. You might have a baby, for example. You might go through a big move. You might have financial changes, health changes. And you're always going to be missing that person or these people. And it's why we have to have grace with people. And while I can confidently say I very much have my grief under control, especially at this point, I've gotten into this mode where I understand, like, this is for a lifetime now. Like, that earlier shock has worn off. The earlier days of shock have worn off, but that like year 3, year 4 is almost harder in some ways, because you're again realizing the magnitude of it, the severity of it, the permanency of it. So where parenthood then comes into play is, like I said, you're coping with this grief. And on the other side, you are about to enter this awe-inspiring, life-altering experience of becoming, in my case, a mother, or, just a parent yourself. And so today I just want to talk about like kind of what it looks like and what it is to navigate those two worlds simultaneously, because it's a little crazy. It's a little confusing. It hurts. It's, new things come up every day. New things as your baby, as your child gets older, as you get older, just all of this. And so I just want to acknowledge the complexity of experiencing this grief and this profound joy simultaneously. But, taking new life, bringing new life into the world, taking a child out of it, of course, like, let's just acknowledge the impact of losing a mother or father or a parental figure in general, right? That unique bond, whatever that looks like to you, even if you had a tumultuous relationship with a parent, there are still complicated feelings when a parent dies. And there's a lot of pieces that we feel like we might have to pick up. And if we did have a really beautiful, loving, close relationship with them, there's complexities to that. There's complexities to if that relationship was strained. And losing a parent, just like losing a child or losing, whoever, it's a profound and it is a unique kind of pain. And just to focus on losing a mother specifically, as I alluded to, like losing your mother, like your mother is your first connection to the world. It is literally your source of life. It is a source of your first source of love. It's you're learning so much through your mother. And there's that like a literal chemical bond there. And so when that connection is compromised by them no longer being here in the physical world as we have been so used to and as we've gotten to know them, there's really no words to describe it, right? Unless you've been there, but it's like, that very cliche, like the ground from underneath you has just shifted and broken and collapsed, and you're unsteady, you're unsure, it's like a feeling of lostness that it's like so hard to pinpoint. Like, I'm a grief coach, you guys, and I can't even like completely verbalize this. It's excruciating. And your father figure, arguably, this is very blanket statement here, but would be sort of next in line there, right? Like, that's another person that you maybe don't have quite the same like chemical bond with, but like you're still bonded, right? It's your father. I had a beautiful relationship with my father, and short of being physically tied to my mom since being in the womb, I felt that same, it was like same but different when my dad died. It was still yet another connection, that tether, that bond it felt like it was severed when he died. And I just want to also clarify though, like that bond with our loved one, that invisible tether, as I've referred to it before, that never goes away, you guys. Like, no matter where you feel your loved one's spirit or anything goes after we die, I'm of such a firm belief that relationship and that bond that we have, it doesn't go anywhere. So it doesn't always help with missing them physically here, but it is one of those things for me that has helped me just feel a little bit closer to them in some ways. And, but regardless, you are now faced with so many emotional challenges, again, even outside of parenthood, but add parenthood and the idea of bringing new life into this world without the people that brought you into this world is like, it's like an inception to me, almost. Like I don't think I'm maybe even using that right, but like I think of the movie, it's just like, it's like you cannot compute like, and it's so natural, right? It's the cycle of life and death and all the things. But for me, like, I'm 33 right now, so I would like to consider myself on the younger side. And I never thought I would be in this position. So, but the loss of a mother specifically, I guess my point is, can be especially overwhelming when we are facing a milestone of becoming a mother ourselves. Or similarly, especially again for any men listening here, maybe it's you feel that connection. Maybe you did feel it with your mom, but like it's just that son father relationship too, I think can also be very sacred, and just maybe you just understand each other a little bit differently or better in some cases. And so maybe that is what you're really, struggling with. And for me, like the loss of my father, for me, I lost stability. I lost just this beautiful care and compassion and warmth that he brought to my life. And what was really interesting though, and kind of strange about when he died, it's like I almost sometimes think about like, what if my dad had died first? And it's interesting because the reason I even say that is because when my dad died, then officially both of my parents were dead. So I think I just was then starting to be able to process, okay, now both of them. So I was like navigating life with both. So I almost like, I can't even speak to losing just my dad alone. I know this is like, hopefully this is making sense, but I also lost my parents fairly close together. I mean, within 6 months of each other. So anyway, not to belabor all that, but just a lot of layers to that I've had to kind of sift through. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, but navigating grief specifically of my mom's death, specifically my dad's death, and then like the death of our family unit. And it's It's tough. And it's really also very interesting now, I have to say, being like in my mom's position. And what I mean by that is, it's almost as if I were in my mom's shoes, my husband is in my dad's shoes, and now I have a little daughter, which is like me. It's like how I was in my little family unit of three. And so it's so like, and I've talked to friends about this too, and they were just like, Tara, I feel like that's so like weirdly poetic. Like here you are now in this little family of three, and you're the one with the daughter now. And you're like sort of in your mom's shoes, and how that must feel. And it is really surreal, honestly. Like I have such an appreciation for my mom now more than ever. And like, not that I didn't before, of course I did, but again, with parenthood, like it opens your eyes in more ways than you can possibly imagine. And I know I'm so new to it, honestly, still, but I can already see short-term and long-term how it already has and will continue to impact my life. And one of those ways is understanding my mom better. Again, just in her shoes. Not that I don't understand my dad, I did, but like being a female as well, and being that mother figure in my family, and being the glue that binds everyone and everything together. I do feel that. And that is a massive burden to bear. And just shout out to women here listening and also in that role, because parenthood, as they say, again, very cliche, but it is truly, genuinely the most thankless job you will ever take on. You don't get paid for it. There's no overtime, like, or you work that overtime, but again, you're not compensated for it. And there's so many like little invisible things that you do on a daily basis that maybe your partner doesn't realize, or others around you don't realize how much you're struggling. So even if you have parents that are alive, that can still happen. But going through all of that without one or both of your parents to be able to lean on and support you, it's a lot. It's a lot. I've done therapy in the past. I'm not currently doing it, but I have to be honest, like my mind has gone there. I very, very much considered doing therapy again, going through all of this, 1000%. It's just to kind of finish up this particular thought, there's just been so many instances where my mind has just been like either directed at one or both of them, like mom or dad, or mom and dad. I don't know how to do this without you. I am scared. I miss you more than I can say. I just feel a little directionless. And even if I feel like I have direction that day, or if I'm feeling like I'm having a good day, then it's often like, I wish you were here to see this, to see me become a mother in person, right? Like, again, I do feel that our loved ones are around us, and I feel like they're here and around and seeing things, but it will never make up for that in-person experience that we're missing so much, and that we need and that we want to have.
Real quick interruption here, and then we'll get back to this episode. If you're someone who is experiencing some form of loss and are trying to navigate the complexities of grief, which you likely are in some capacity if you've stumbled upon this podcast, then this message is for you. If you haven't heard about my Life with Grief membership and community yet, this is truly something you need to check out. This membership is here to guide you into living a deeper, more meaningful, and full life after experiencing loss. Who doesn't want that, right? I created this membership because I know what it's like to navigate and cope with grief on a daily basis, and I know the tools and support it takes to do this effectively. I've done the work myself, and I've coached people just like you to do the same. It comes down to having impactful, effective resources and tools at your disposal, having the right support around you from people who can understand and empathize with your grief, and having encouragement and inspiration around you consistently to not only elicit and spark change, but to keep it and keep the positive momentum going. Enrollment opens once a month for a limited time. Check out the details linked in the description, and I hope to see you in there.
With parenthood and just life in general, it has a way of moving forward, even when we're not ready. And so, despite any grief, when a child comes along, you have to prepare to welcome that child into the world. And for me, I knew my mom and dad's love and guidance and energy and the way that they raised me would come to light. And I would have to learn to feel those in a different way because I don't have it here in person. And there's a lot of ways that this can come to fruition, right? Through memories I have through lessons that I learned from them, through family videos, through traditions, through the love that I can now pass on to my child. And that's all I can do at the end of the day. That's all any of us can do at the end of the day is keeping their memory alive and taking the best parts and the best characteristics and all of the things from our loved ones and applying that to ourselves and our own life and then our children as well. And like anything, you just do the best you can. And you ask for help. You get the right support. I told you I'd sprinkle in some coping tools and some things here. That's one. And you're going to hear me say that probably more than once in this episode, but it's not having fear of asking for help. It's, even though I haven't jumped on therapy yet, maybe it's doing that, or maybe it's getting a coach. It's someone like me, right? Even though I coach people, like it's very different when it's your situation. And so I'm navigating my own situation, but if this is you and you feel like you need some help, like I would love to be that person for you. Just throwing that out there. It's easier to coach when it's not you in the hot seat. But either way, I take things slow and I take things a step at a time. And the anticipation of bringing a new life into the world, it's often filled with excitement and hope, but when we're missing a parent, it is very much intertwined with sorrow. And I also want to mention too, like getting married, like any major life event, like I went through this with my wedding too, because my parents also were not at my wedding. And it's really trippy because like anything else, like any other milestone or any just small, quiet day-to-day moment, it's deafening, and there's sometimes things that you never envision them not being here for, right? Maybe however they died, maybe it was very quick, maybe it was instantaneous, maybe you didn't get to say goodbye. Or if you were like me, where you kind of did get to say goodbye because it was a prolonged illness, but here you are watching your loved ones just in agony. And either way, you like can't even imagine these milestones until they happen and you're faced with them. And for me, of course, this started prior to my daughter coming into the world. This started in pregnancy and that excitement. And even though I had a lot of support and a lot of very excited people around me, it certainly wasn't going to be the same not being able to share that news with my parents, right? Like every milestone in my pregnancy was a reminder of the absence of my own mother and the absence of my own father and the people that I just long to share these moments with, simply put. And with my mom specifically, again, just because I'm a mother, she was a mother, right? She also went through pregnancy and birth and all of the things. I wanted to ask her questions. I just wanted to talk to her. I wanted to go on our walks. I want that girl time. Like, again, so cliche, but my mom was my best friend. Still is, as far as I'm concerned. And that's hard to talk about. But there's just a lot of little things that I wish I could have experienced with her. And I'll talk a little bit about the birth in a second, but just to jump ahead for a moment, not having her, I don't think she would have been in the room with me, to be honest. I had always sort of wanted that and envisioned that to be just me and my husband, but to not be able to have my parents come to the hospital right after and see me and see the baby. But that's a whole nother story, because if you don't know our birth story, it was not even anywhere near quote unquote normal. But anyway, their absences just felt so deeply in these milestones and these little day-to-day things. And I don't even know if you can hear this in the background right now, but my husband is watching my daughter and she's like crying and making noises, and even just things like that. Just the little special little things. And so there's just this internal conflict between grieving and missing them so badly, but also preparing for that new life. And the other thing about my mom too is like she was an interior decorator at one point for many years. And so like I even think about the room I'm sitting in right now. If you're watching this, the video version of this, I'm in my office / my daughter's nursery right now, because we have a condo and we don't have a lot of space. And I would have loved for her to be here to like help me decorate and do, just again, all those like girl things and the things that I love doing with her. And my dad would just kind of wander in and be like, "Oh, this is beautiful, hon." Kind of walk out and do his thing. Like, he was just like, "I'll let you girls do your thing." But that was so sweet. That was so him. And so I just imagine all of these situations happening, or how they would have happened in my head, but I can't live them in person, and I can't physically make those memories here. So, just overall, becoming a mother while grieving my own parents, my own mother, and all of this, it was not the experience I imagined, but it was mine to navigate, I guess. And I am still navigating it. And, I just touched on the birth experience, and, again, just the emotional intensity of giving birth and just that whole experience without the presence of one's mother or father, whoever you would have wanted like around there. That's one thing in and of itself. And I think for me, had I been able to have that, but also like, again, a quote, normal birth, and I'll clarify what I mean by that in a second, like that would have been one thing. Like not having them be able to like come and visit, and like I said, all those things, like that was sad enough for me. But then we had a really, really horrifying, very traumatic birth experience. I will not get into that in this episode. That is literally a whole story. I actually did talk about this. I shared our birth story in episode 50 of the podcast. If you want to go check that out, it's definitely a hell of a story. We're unfortunately not alone in that we had a NICU baby. I mean, she was in the NICU for 18 days. I share that experience in that episode, but I share learnings and things like that. So again, it's not just me just like spewing this story. Like I really was very thoughtful in how I shared that story. So definitely go check that episode out. Again, that's episode 50 if you're curious about that experience in detail. But like I said, had everything gone to plan, it would have been hard enough for me not having my parents there. But here I was. I gave birth via emergency C-section. That night, I mean, my daughter had to have 2 transfusions, blood transfusions, like in the hospital that we were at. And then that night, she was transferred to the Oakland, we're in Northern California, so the Oakland UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, which we are so thankful to be near, because that is the level of care that she needed. It was very, very serious. She lost basically all of her blood leaked into mine prior to her coming out into the world. So she was stark white. We were within a day of losing her had I not gone into the hospital and had the C-section when I did. Just to give you a little backstory. So, I remember that night, like I told my husband, like, because he didn't really want to leave me, but of course, certainly we weren't going to have her transferred to this hospital with neither of us there, because God forbid something happened, like, forget about it. So, I was like, go, please. So he like followed the ambulance down there to go be with her and be there for this procedure, this 3rd transfusion. But then I was there in this hospital bed and room completely by myself. I don't think I just wasn't even ready to like tell friends or really close family what had happened. Like, I think I maybe texted a couple people that like, hey, things actually took a turn today and we're actually giving birth now. But I wasn't ready to like talk about it. So it was a little bit self-induced, to be honest with you, this aloneness I was feeling. But literally the only other people I wanted, and this is not to say I didn't like want my friends or family, like they're absolutely amazing, but there's just no one like your parents. And those are the only two people I wanted in that moment, and I couldn't have them. And, nothing humbles you more and nothing makes you grow up faster than not having your parents, right? And so it was just surreal. Just, again, sitting in that hospital bed, wishing I had my parents, feeling like a freaking child myself, going through all of this. Yet I just went through a very, very big girl adult thing. And, oh, you guys, it was rough. It was horrible. Wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so, I just, from that moment on, all I could ever do, all I have been able to do is stay very present and tap into, again, just the teachings and the lessons and the things that they have imparted on me to navigate all of this. So there's such a bittersweetness of experiencing new life and that excitement while still mourning. And me sitting in the hospital bed that night by myself, that was a perfect example of that. And a million other things in between since then that I will spare you from right now, just for the sake of time. But just shifting gears a little bit to navigating life since then, navigating life with grief, parenthood with grief, new parenthood, just all of these things, and finding grace in all of that. There's a few things I wanted to touch on here. Number one is giving myself permission. And when I say giving myself, like I want you to give yourself this permission today too, with all of these things that I'm saying. Giving myself permission to mourn my mother while celebrating the arrival of my daughter. And knowing that those two things can coexist. And it is such a trip because, this is purely my opinion, this is my experience. My daughter's birth did not fill the void at all of my mom or my dad or both of them together. That void is actually it's bigger and it is more alive and more prominent than ever. That void of my parents is louder than ever. But it is such a miracle that my daughter is here. It is such a miracle that she's okay. And it's just such a miracle in general. And there's so much joy around her presence and her energy here that it's not replacing it. It's just allowing room for both of those things to exist at the same time. And it is a trip, let me tell you. Like, if you have been through parenthood, or if you were going through parenthood and you were doing this without a parent, you probably know what I'm talking about. Like this feeling, right? But I want to give permission today, just because you have a child or multiple children or whatever, it's not to fill any gaps. It's not to fill any void. Another thing that I think is really important to call out is, and this is specifically for those who have in-laws and either a mother-in-law or father-in-law or both, whoever is still alive, and if they are present in your child's life. I have an absolutely wonderful mother-in-law and father-in-law as well. I get along great with both of them. I love them dearly. I'm very, very grateful that they have become parental-like figures in my life. They have never will replace my parents ever, nor would they try to. But they're very supportive and they're wonderful with my daughter. And in that way, I'm very, very lucky. But has it been difficult, especially with my mother-in-law, just because it's just that mother bond thing. It's like, I wish my mom could be a grandmother to my daughter. And I'm so grateful she has one. Don't get me wrong. But it is hard watching that sometimes. I am not going to lie. It's beautiful. And again, it's just this dichotomy, right? We can acknowledge it's a beautiful thing. We can be grateful for it, but it doesn't make it any easier knowing that your own parent, be it a mother or a father, is not here physically to have that same relationship. It's very, very difficult. And so I just wanted to mention that. I want to hold space for that today. That is something I have been navigating. I am continuing to navigate. It's something I'm going to have to navigate for decades, God willing. So yeah, that's hard. That's not a position I thought I would be in. Certainly not in this point in my life, not as young as I am, right? Thought I'd have a few more years with my parents. And the last thing too, that I just want to bring attention to and acknowledge is, giving myself permission to feel sad when I see other mothers and maybe their mothers with their daughters. And I keep bringing up like this mother-daughter relationship. Like I said, this episode was originally going to be all about mother-daughter relationships. So I'm calling attention to this because that is what's relevant for me. But however this is relevant for you, or again, if it's a father-son relationship and there's like this grandfather, father-son lineage that you're kind of coping with or mourning or whatever, I mourn that as well, as far as seeing my dad as a grandfather, yet watching my father-in-law be a grandfather to my daughter. Like, it's confusing, and it's such a back and forth thing. And you can, again, just feel that gratitude and joy for them being in your life, yet still feel so sad and feel that void and feel sad and resentful about the fact that your mom or dad or both are not here to experience that too. And before my daughter came into my life, I definitely felt sad and felt resentful of seeing other mother-daughter duos. And now I still feel that way, not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm like, wish I had that still. I'm getting used to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it doesn't sting sometimes. But now it's almost like when I see multiple generations, or even some of my cousins who still have their parents, because most of my cousins do. I think maybe all of my cousins do. They have that, grandma themselves and then their kids relationship. And I'm like, man, that must be nice. Must be nice to have that. Wonder what that's like. It's just, and it's rough, you guys. It's like, I joke because sometimes I have a dark sense of humor, right? Like, wow, this is getting really old. Like, it's just one of the many, many things we have to navigate. But I've also recognized, and this has just been through my grieving journey since the day my parents died, there is grace. There is grace that we have to have for ourselves, for other people. We have to embrace the full spectrum of emotions that come with such a profound change. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, especially for us women, or especially for those who have given birth, hormones. I gotta mention it. Hormones play a huge role in all of this. This is a huge aspect of this. I'm not a doctor, so please do not at me or quote me on this, but I feel like I read somewhere where it can take a year to get your hormones regulated to feel quote unquote like yourself again, and to get that sort of under control, so to speak. So especially in those first several days, especially in the first weeks, months, especially if you are sleep deprived and all of the things, add grief on top of that, add the hormones on top of that, you don't know which way is up, right? And then you're dealing with such loss on top of it. And maybe the death, right? The loss happened years ago, like mine have, for example, but you're discovering and navigating new layers of that. So, so difficult. So I just want to hold space for that. And, becoming a mother doesn't mean you stop missing your own, or becoming a father doesn't mean you stop missing either parent, whoever this is for you. But it does give you the opportunity to honor them when you raise your child, and think about new and exciting ways to do that spark joy for you. And that can be in so many different ways, but I just want to first acknowledge, the ongoing process of grief while you are raising a child. And again, I know I'm very new to this world, this parenting thing, but I know that's going to take on new forms and identities and layers as the years go on. I know, because it's happened already, but I know for a fact it's going to continue to resurface during significant moments of my life, of my child's life. Think first steps, first tooth, first birthday, all the things. My God, my daughter graduating from high school at some point, which is like, I'm so far away from that, I can't even think about it. It makes me sad. And just balancing personal grief with the responsibilities and joys of parenthood. Hey there, really quick, did you know there are 6 new designs for my Losses Become Gains daily journal? I am seriously so excited to share these with you. I'm calling these new designs my Mediterranean collection because it really speaks to those fun vacation in Europe and Mediterranean vibes, which I personally love. And they're all just so fun, but are also such an impactful part of your daily routine. And the patterns are so awesome. And really, there is something for everyone here. There is a Grecian tile, Seville oranges, Positano stripes, we want to think beachy vibes here, Aperol spritz, ocean waves, and limoncello. As always, you get 3 months of prompts with room for free writing, a section in the beginning to help you tap into who you are and your why, what your goals are, and there are also some clear instructions on how to best utilize this journal. It takes literally 5 minutes a day, and it's really just a simple yet wonderful practice that will truly make a long-lasting impact on your healing and grieving journey. You can find them on Amazon by searching for the Losses Become Gains Daily Journal. Be sure to scroll down to find each pattern, or tap the link in the show notes for more. And just how exhausting that is, and how there's no way to even comprehend what that's going to be like until you're in it. So I really just say that just to validate anybody here listening who is in this boat right now, and maybe your parents or your parent, whoever you're missing, is like the only person you need and want right now, and you can't have them, and just how unfair that can feel. It's the worst. It's just the worst, you guys. In and out of parenthood, we can all feel that way. And the other thing too that I'll just kind of say, again, because this is a very honest conversation, like, I wish my parents were here to like help us out. I wish they could babysit. I wish they could just like be here to get to know her and spend that quality time with her. And also, like, again, I'll be very honest, like, give my husband and I a break every once in a while. Like, my in-laws are wonderful, but like, they can't always be there. I don't always have, it's just like one less support system that so many people depend on that I just don't have. All of my family is on the East Coast. My husband doesn't have a lot of close family here. We're strapped on people that we have around. So having people you trust around, i.e. through your parents, it's something that I think a lot of people take advantage of, like not in a malicious way. It's not like they mean to take advantage of it. It happens, right? Like, you don't know what you have until it's gone, kind of a thing. So I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that up because that's a very real thought that I have every once in a while. I just wish I had them here to babysit and just help out and all of that. But I think where I will start to close out this conversation is, just with parenthood, you definitely tap into a strength and a resilience and a level of showing up, for most of us at least, that you have just never known before. And it requires levels of endurance from you that personally, at least, that I've never known before. That I knew I was a strong person. I know I have a lot of endurance and resilience within me. I've built that a lot over the years. I think I came hardwired with a lot of that, but I think a lot of that was taught to me by my parents and just seeing them as these incredible examples of how to live life with that strength and with that stamina and all these amazing things. But again, you are just put to tests that you cannot even possibly imagine when you become a parent. And again, I know I am very early on this journey. I'm only in the beginning stages of getting tested, but her birth was big test number one, let me tell you. But, just to talk about honoring their memory a little bit and how I'm sort of like incorporating them into all of it, that strength that I mentioned, I tap into that. I'm very intentional with a lot of my life. I have really solid morning and evening practices that I do. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I journal. I have a prompted journal. My Losses Become Gains daily journal is literally, I created it for this reason. It's a beautiful 5-minute a day, super easy resource. That's in the show notes. Go check that out. Shameless plug. I'm sorry. But for real, like, I created it specifically for people who are grieving and going through difficult times, just like you might be if you've stumbled on this podcast. So that's there. But I do that, and I set intentions for the day. I have my Angels and Auras card deck that I discovered several months ago, and I pull a card every morning, and I just kind of like sit with it, and I try and get messages. I definitely have like a spiritual woo-woo side to me, if y'all didn't know that, but I love it. It's so good. I just get to know myself. I be sure to stay in touch with myself, and I am intentional about getting to know myself and this new version of myself as a parent, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as a family member. Like, all of these elements and all of these sides of myself, I've encouraged and empowered myself to get curious and to get to know that and be in touch with it. And that is the biggest lesson that I learned. It's like something that I kind of inadvertently did after both of my parents died. Like, when I was essentially relearning how to life without the two people that I needed most. And that was like, certainly once my mom died, but I was like way too in my grief to like even do that at that point. And then my dad's health started going downhill. So it was it was chaotic. But once they died, and the shock certainly hadn't worn off yet or anything, but I just surrounded myself with resources and people and podcasts and books and journaling and things that helped me and allowed me to be introspective and, like I said, get curious and give myself that much needed time each and every day to say hello to myself and ask myself what I really want and need out of life. And I think in doing that, I'd like to think, I became a better person before I became a mother, but now I really make sure and do that because someone else's life is on the line now. Along with my husband, like, I am solely responsible for keeping this beautiful little soul, this beautiful little girl alive. And I want to show up for her in the best way possible. And I know certainly from experience and also through coaching, that making sure my grief is in check, and not that I don't feel it, quite the opposite. I absolutely feel it when and if I need to. And talking it out on episodes like this, very, very cathartic and very helpful. So thank you so much for listening if you've made it this far. But all of that to say is, it's that very cliche, classic, like, you got to make sure your oxygen mask is on that plane before you can help others. And so that's why I just really encourage finding the right coping tools for you and your unique and special and specific type of grief, whatever it may be. And whether that's meditation, whether that is breath work, both of those I do, by the way, as well. Whatever it looks like for you, taking up a new hobby, learning a new language, like getting excited and joyful and curious about your life again, and the new iterations that are coming of you, and that this experience, your many, many life experiences, are going to take you through. And it's not that our loved ones died for a reason, or that we have to find reason and meaning and purpose in all of it. But like, if that is a byproduct of everything that has happened, that's beautiful. That is an incredible gift that we are very, very fortunate to have. But there is work that has to go into that sometimes. So that's a little glimpse into what I've done, what I am doing to try and navigate this very, very new era of motherhood, of parenthood that I'm in. And also, I think this is going to evolve more as my daughter grows older, but, finding ways to keep my parents' memories alive through traditions and stories and values. And, like, I joke with my husband and with his family. I'm just like, it's great that she's an Accardo, but she's half Jordan too. And I want her to know my side, and I want her to know my family and my parents and where she's come from, because she doesn't know my parents, obviously, right? Like, of course, I hope they met in some spiritual realm before she came down here. But she's not going to know them here in the physical world. And she is going to know my in-laws and my other family. So I feel an immense responsibility, and that is stressful sometimes. But I've learned to take the stress off, and I've learned to just do what I can to embody myself, my parents, have a good mixture of all of it, and impart that on her. And then empower and allow herself to be whatever amazing little soul and being that she's going to be. And embracing that and recognizing how incredible and special she is, and, allowing her to really grow into that however she's going to, and being open and excited for that, and recognizing that she wouldn't be here if it weren't for my parents. And so I just have, as sad as it is, I have immense, immense gratitude for them, for my life, for the life that I've been given, and everything that's been passed to me via lessons and all the things that my parents gave me. And now I have the incredible honor and privilege of giving that to her too. And, I find some peace in that, and knowing that their legacies will continue through me, and then through her, and hopefully generations after that. And like I said, just leaning on family and friends, maybe therapy, maybe a support group if you're really struggling or you want to talk it out. I really encourage talking it out. Friendly reminder, my Life with Grief membership, it is here. It is available to you, and more is linked in the show notes on that. But that is a community that I want to grow, and I want to be able to give to you, to serve grievers like you when you feel like you might need some people around you who just get it. For me, there's basically nobody, very, very few people that are my age that have lost both of my parents that are in my more or less immediate circle. I've met some incredible people through losses become gains and this podcast and everything, but that are my go-tos. I basically have nobody. To be very honest, as far as people who know what it's like to have an infant, and navigate new parenthood without both parents. Not super common. I mean, unfortunately, it's common. Like it does, of course it happens. I'm just saying in my life, I don't have a lot. So, and I don't say that for pity. I say that because if that is what you are feeling right now, if you are feeling like you could need that support, I just want you to know, no matter who you've lost, I am here. This community is here. We got you. And, if you have ever experienced a loss, you know that it changes you. 1000%. But in that change, there is growth. There is strength. There is a new understanding of love. And especially with parenthood. If you are a parent, you know this. It is a love that is so difficult to even put into words. It is a bond with that being that is so sacred and so big and so profound. And so just acknowledging the beauty in that and just finding so much gratitude and so much light and love in what you had with your parental figure, whoever that is or was for you, for however long we had it. And sometimes it doesn't feel like enough. And I understand that. And I am just here to validate that for anybody here feeling that. And to those who have walked this path, who are walking this path right now, know that you are not alone. Make sure you hold space for yourself and for your grief. Communicate to your partner or whoever it is, like, hey, I am struggling today. Not only just with maybe the kids or just like being a lot and giving you a run for your money. Maybe it's that. Maybe your grief is just hitting you really hard that day. Trust me, it has knocked me on my butt multiple times throughout this process, not only with the birth of my daughter, but just honestly, sometimes where I get triggered, like I said, is just seeing other family members or like my in-laws or whoever have this special bond with her that it hits me like, my mom and dad aren't going to have that. Like, acknowledge that, communicate that, hold that space, and know that that's okay. And know that that is going to come. And there are people around, if you don't have them in your immediate circle, that can journey with you through that. And I am one of them. And I just want to leave you with just encouragement, nothing but encouragement today for those who are here listening and experiencing a similar situation or challenge. I am sending you all the love in the world. Losing someone in general, not easy. Navigating parenthood on top of it, even harder, to say the very least. So that all being said, if you have made it this far, thank you for joining me in this episode today. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. I am always here for you. I hope this was helpful today. And if nothing else, just to help you feel a little less alone. We're all in this together. This parenthood thing, you guys, it is no joke. It is true what they say. But I'm just sending you all so much light and love. And if you have been moved by this episode and this conversation, or if it resonates with you in your own experience, I invite you to share your thoughts and stories. Email me, DM me. I am so here for you. It's so important that we talk about this and lift each other up and have that support. And please know that you have a friend in me. You have that in me. And we're all in this together. If you enjoyed this episode today, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Maybe you are not the one that's necessarily navigating parenthood or new parenthood especially, but maybe you know someone that is navigating it without a parent or both parents. I would so appreciate it if you share this resource with them so I can help even more grievers navigate this very, very complex, complicated thing called life with grief. This podcast is here for you however you need it. Thank you so, so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you in the next episode.
I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. I'm so grateful you're here and for the steps you are taking to heal your heart, open your mind, fulfill your soul, learn, grow, and evolve and move through this crazy thing called life in big, beautiful, impactful ways. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, ways to work with me, to shop my daily journal, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Life with Grief Podcast. I love seeing new faces, meeting new people, hearing your stories, and supporting you however I can. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you haven't left a rating or a review, please do so. I would so appreciate it. Or if you feel so inclined, to share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. I'll catch you in the next episode.